I went into this light novel expecting an interesting story where the main character, Ray Taylor, would flip the script of the visual novel and pursue a difficult courtship of the game's main villainess, Claire, through various romantic endeavors. Instead, what I got was...
At last you understand. We're doomed.
No, that's not it. I am just so touched that you would go to the trouble to dress up as a ghostly fry cook and stand on the other side of the street just to entertain me. You must really like me.
SpongeBob, there are two problems with your theory. One, I hate you.
Amelia, if you're so bloody obsessed with her, why don't you just marry her already?
Maybe I will.
I did not agree to that!
Yes, you did.
So, can I help you?
No, but maybe I can help you.
I need an adult.
I am an adult.
At least for a good first chunk of the book. Needless to say, I was caught off guard by the fact that this book is basically a comedy for its first 40 pages or so. But that is not a bad thing, as the first 40 or so pages of this light novel are a hilarious read, and it's very humorous to see Claire's attempt to torment Ray bounce off of her like Teflon, and be responded to with nothing but unconditional declarations of love that completely baffled Claire. I laughed throughout the encounters as it was like watching Roadrunner continuously thwart Wile E. Coyote's attempts to eat him, and then the main character became a little too Pepe Le Pew at times. The main character begins to say how much she wants Claire to kiss her, or how much she wants to be in bed with her. Hell, at one point, she even attempts to get her to share the same futon with her. This all gets a bit uncomfortable as Claire doesn't really respond well to the advances and clearly isn't into it, and it honestly hurt my enjoyment of the story. Still, there are nice moments between the MC and Villainess, even if they were often interjected with either uncomfortable moments by Ray, or with the same material that I found humorous in the first 40 pages of the story, which had now gotten old and didn't really make me laugh as much as I once had. What we're overall left with in regards to the romantic side of the story is an initially funny dynamic that starts to get a little uncomfortable and old as the story goes, though it does have its moments. But what about the characters in that dynamic? Ray isn't the most defined character, but that doesn't mean she's only a blank slate. She's a person from our world that's been transported or reincarnated to another world. I'm not quite clear if she died from overwork or if she just got teleported into Ray Taylor's body. Finding herself in this world, she is left with one desire: to save Claire from the potentially awful fates that await her as the main villain of a romance visual novel, and to make sure she has a happy life. That's right, she's not out to romance Claire, but instead just to be by her side and make sure she's happy, as she doesn't actually believe she has a shot at Claire. This kinda recontextualizes her constant teasing of Claire, as they aren't romantic pursuits, just her messing with the girl she likes in order to get a rise out of her, as that's the most she thinks she can really get, aside from maybe a friendship. That doesn't really mitigate how creepy Ray got with the teasing or her other activities, but it does put in a little bit of a different context. Ray's interactions with Claire aren't her only relationships, however, as she has a commoner friend, Misha, that she, funnily enough, interacts with far less than she would in the actual visual novel because she's decided to be around Claire more. The two have a nice relationship, but there really isn't much to it yet, anyway. There's also Claire's maid, Lene, who actually fills more of Misha's intended role due to how often Ray is next to the villainess. The two of them have some interesting interactions, though there is an aspect to Lene that people might find unpleasant. There are also the visual novel's original 3 princely romance options who Ray has conflicting opinions toward. She dislikes the personalities of 2 of the princes and only really likes the third one, while also having no romantic feelings for any of them, and actively tries to avoid setting off any events that would lead to romance with any of them. These various characters bring out different aspects of Ray's personality and show that there is a decent amount to her, even if it's mostly overshadowed by her love for Claire. Speaking of Claire, unlike the main heroine, I am not in love with the villainess. At least not yet. This volume shows that there's a bit more to Claire than meets the eye, and we see some of those elements, and it helps us to understand why Ray is infatuated with her. However, this is really only the beginning of the story, so Claire is still a really big jerk. She's a classist, noble snob who looks down her nose at anyone with a hint of commoner blood that isn't already in her good graces. She is also very much still a villainess, even if Ray doesn't really let her be. Much of Claire's villainess air is taken away from her by how much she's undercut by Ray's teasing and can kind of make you forget, oh right, she's a jackass, until she does something that reminds you. She's still the archetypal character you would find in a romance visual novel, but there are hints of more, which I hope get explored as the series goes along. Aside from the main romance and the characters, the story of the light novel doesn't really start to get going until the halfway point, as we learn more of what Rei's goals are and more of the dramatic events of the original visual novel start to play out. The plot takes some interesting turns, but a lot of it occurs in such quick succession that it doesn't really have much time to develop or breathe before it's over. Still, it helps to offset the book's somewhat boring parts in a romantic dynamic that I really, really hope gets better in Volume 2. Oh yeah, and the combat in this light novel is weirdly awesome and was without question the best part of the experience. So overall, this is largely just an average first outing that has hints of more promising material for later, but I really hope it lives up to that promise.